This is Bob Brooks, host of the Prudent Money Radio Show. Just got off the program and I want to give you a little bit of an idea of what we talked about. This happens from time to time. I'll start off with the intention of talking about a main topic, and I get distracted by another story that might have happened a couple of hours before I went on air, talked to somebody, heard about something, read something, thought, well, this is more important to be talked about. So that happened today. I was going to talk about the spectrum of retirement and where do you fall. We'll probably do that tomorrow. But talked a little bit about everything by the increasing problems I'm seeing with identity theft and why you need to be careful and why you need to be taking steps to protect your bank account, down to the problems with this strike of the United Auto Workers. When does it become something that's real troublesome for the economy? So we talk about that and get you a list. I'll get you my opinion on what I think. And if you ever have a question for me, please go to the Q&A that's up at the top of the website, and there's a link. Just click through, and I'll be happy to help you if you need a financial advisor to give you a second opinion on your investments or what you're doing with your 401k plan. I am available to do that. So just send us an email at info@prudentmoney.com. We'll get you taken care of. Keep the faith.
This is Bible School Radio, KDKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and KYJC Commerce. Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
So where do you fall on the spectrum concerning retirement? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. I do have a line open if you'd like to call in with a question and or a comment. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357, 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at prudentmoney.com. Send a question into the Q&A that's up at the top. Link, or you'll find the link, at the top of the web page, and send your question in. We'd love to get that. Love to get any comments that you might have. And if I can help, I want to help in any way that I can. So that's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. And don't forget, on Monday and Wednesday of each week, we are putting brand new blogs out on the website. And if you're on the Prudent Money e-letter list, you get that straight to your inbox when we send it, when we place it on the website. So make sure you're signed up for that. And of course, so we don't do anything with your email address. We just put it in a database and keep it protected so we don't give it out or anything like that. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Listen, one of the things that I like to do is for my listeners to benefit from things that I experience during the day talking to people. And I told you back, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago that the whole problem with thieves hacking into cybersecurity and thieves hacking into databases and stealing consumer files. I mean, that's been going on for years. And also, the problem with today is that you could have a major hack, one that's well over 100 million or something like that, and it probably wouldn't even make the front page of most websites. People are definitely not paying attention to it. Because I don't think that, I think that the difference between today and maybe 2 or 3 years ago is that identity thieves are going at it more on a smaller scale, but probably making just as much or more money. I told you about a story of a couple that are clients of mine that they received literally, and I may be off on this a little bit, but you'll get the idea. If you're part of a business and your information's in their database and it gets hacked and they steal that information, that means your consumer file has been compromised and you run the risk of having someone pretend to be you because they have all your information and steal your identity. Well, generally what happens is the company sends out a letter saying, hey, your personal information may or may not have been compromised. And of course, it's interesting. They take responsibility, but they don't take responsibility. And they always offer free credit monitoring for a certain period of time. That's typically what happens. And like I said, you get that letter that gets sent out. That you have been a potential victim of, or you could be a potential victim of identity theft. So this couple received 4 different letters in 5 weeks from 4 different companies. And I'm hearing more and more and more problems that are coming up. Today, I had the opportunity to talk to one of my clients who told me about the experience she's been going through. And I told her on her way out, I said, hey, I got to tell everybody about this because this is something that you've got to be aware of. And I say that because there's a tendency for us to casually check our checking accounts. Now, for those listening that may cut it close every month, I get it. You're probably checking your credit account, your checking accounts, making sure everything is in place, there's no problems. And but if you're like some people, percentage of the country who's probably not paying attention because they always know I know how much I make and how much I spend, and there's usually money left over. If I really need to know, I'll go in and I'll check everything. Well, what ends up happening is if someone is slowly stealing money out of your account, then you probably are not going to catch it. And they may do it in such a way that you may not catch it for a while. What's interesting is that she had pretty high withdrawal rates of dollar sums taken from her account. Now, the way banks are, credit unions the same. They have 60 days to report the theft. That's what it is. And if you don't report it in that 60 days, they can deny the claim, and you're out the money that was stolen. So she was 2 days too late, which just, it to me, it's I don't really like that rule, and there's just no leniency on the fact that she was actually there 2 days before the deadline, and nobody could meet with her, but yet they don't. They're going to follow the 60-day rule by a T, obviously, and so she's out that money. So I tell you this story to urge you to take identity theft and hacks and all that kind of that type of thing very, very seriously, and make sure that you're doing everything possible to prevent yourself from being a victim of identity theft. Because it seems like, just from the stories I've heard, from the things I've come across, is that there's been an uptick in this kind of activity. And they're not doing it on a massive scale. They're doing it these individual opportunities to take money, get all the information on that person, and learn how to steal from the system. And obviously it works, but just be really careful. And the best way to do that is, of course, on credit cards, you can get a fraudulent charge on there, and it's guaranteed not to go against you. They have to reimburse, and there's no time period on that. On banks work differently. So make sure that you're, even if you're doing it once a month, I would almost suggest doing it at least twice a month, but check what's going in and what's going out of your bank account. And of course, this is one of the reasons why I don't like debit cards, besides the fact it gives you no credit on your credit report, even though it says Visa or MasterCard. And if someone has your debit card and they can produce that card, then they have direct entry into your bank account. Think of it that way more than anything. But as long as you report that within that 60 days, they should reimburse that. Now, I've always called an identity theft if someone steals something from you and you have a loss. That when you report it, you almost have to realize that maybe you're a victim until you're proven that you're not a victim. That you're proven that you're guilty until you're not guilty. Because on the other side of the bank, maybe the person's wondering, well, did you take that money out? Did you set all this up? I've always wondered if and I've never had anybody confirm that with me, whether that's the way that they approach it. But, I was just thinking, if someone walked into a Best Buy, set up a credit card, went in and made it look as if someone else stole your identity and charged something, could you get away with do they do any investigation? I just wonder how all that goes behind the scenes. But just be careful with your bank accounts, because that's the credit card's one thing, and once again, that's why I like credit cards over debit cards. Having said that, there's all kinds of issues with credit cards as well, but identity theft is not one of them. Once again, because you do have that ability to have your money reimbursed just within at any time. I remember when I was at a hotel where I grew up. I was staying there for a wedding or something, and gave them my credit card. They checked me in with the credit card. Little did I know, someone took the information right there, and then they loaded up my credit card with things that I didn't order. Got it all reimbursed, taken care of right away. That's one of the advantages of a credit card. Now, having said that, if identity theft does happen to you, and it's not on a credit card, then it takes an enormous amount of time, an investment of time to get that cleared up. And that is that's the problem with that kind of situation. So just be careful. Like I said, I'm seeing and hearing more and more stories about it affecting people on a personal level. 1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks. Stick around. I'll be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org. At PastorChuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at PastorChuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org.
This week on Truth for Life, we'll wrap up our study in the book of James with a warning about the lure and the misuse of money. Then we'll begin a study of the tough questions asked by the prophet Habakkuk about God's timing and tolerance. That's our focus on Truth for Life with Alistair Begg.
Weekdays at 5:30 a.m. here on 91.3 KDKR.
When love has no evidence, it believes the best. When the evidence is adverse, it hopes for the best. And when hopes are repeatedly disappointed, it just courageously waits and endures. That's real love.
Join Dr. David Jeremiah for his series, The Power of Love, next time on Turning Point.
Weekday mornings at 9 o'clock here on KDKR.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Do have a line open if you'd like to call in. Join the program, 1-877-913-5357. 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send a question in, and I will get that question taken care of for you. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. So I've had some questions come in regarding the strike of the United Auto Workers with the big three automobile manufacturers. And what does all does it mean? Well, as you can imagine, it makes up a big percentage just by itself of the economy. And I think you always have to look at what kind of condition is the economy in, because if it's in a strong position, it's going to absorb quite a bit of the downsides of a strike that's occurring. If it's like it is today, very questionable, because we have, I write about this kind of thing in a client letter that I send out every other week. There's so many imbalances. There's so many reports, government reports, that are just really plain wrong. So it's tough. I think we have a weaker than advertised backdrop in the economy. But supposedly, the automobile manufacturing industry, it makes up 2.9% of our economy. So, any type of disruption, and what they're doing, they're holding out for better benefits, better pay, and all that kind of thing. And actually, now I know nothing about the United Auto Workers to speak intelligently to if they have valid arguments. They want a 40 hour a week work week to go down to 32 hours a work week, and they want a huge percentage in a salary increase. And of course, anybody who's striking is going to have really big demands. But I think what you have to do is you've got to look at all the businesses that feed into the automobile industry. Tires are a good example. Batteries are a good example. The workers who ship supplies and take it across in as far as the trucking business. There's so many different things that tie into it that if you start to have an extreme slowdown, and we've already seen this, we saw this through the pandemic, and you can't meet demand, automobile demand, which they're struggling to do right now, but they're doing it, and we're starting to see some prices come down, which is good. You're just going to get inflation, more of it, higher prices, cars that are already on the showroom floor that are brand new. They're probably, or they could be, going for a little bit of a premium. because there's now to flatten out that demand a little bit is the fact that you're getting 8 to 10% on car loans, which is not good. So I think that people are less likely to run out and buy a brand new car or even a pre-owned car if that's their choice, with the cost of financing being so ridiculously high. And I think we've been seeing a little bit of that. I think the higher interest rates is finally kind of seeping into the economy to the point to where we're starting to see people say, maybe I'll wait and see about interest rates going down some. But the problem, I think, when it comes right down to it, is this puts the big three automobile manufacturers in a pretty bad spot, because they're also getting hit with the pressure of producing electric cars. And this unrealistic, almost laughable switchover that the Biden administration says should happen within a very short time period. I think it was by 2030. And I'll go back. Tony Joe talks about this. We mention this from time to time when we get on the subject of it on Fridays on the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Is that there's very little infrastructure built out to handle the demand for electric cars, charging stations. I mean, think of how many charging stations you would really need in, say, in the state of California or even Texas, as far as that goes. And where would you put them in New York? I mean, there's just the notion that we're going to get to a point at this speed that we're going right now, that we're going to reach a point to where this is all plenty of infrastructure within 5 years and it's all going to work, I think is totally misled. So you have infrastructure issues. You've got the battery, which they've got to be able to come down in price on the batteries, as well as, and that technology's got to get better somehow, and as well as if let's say a Tesla catches on fire, and I've heard several reports about this, that the fire is so violent that the firefighters have not all our firefighters have been trained to deal with a fire like that, so they have to let it burn out. That's secondhand. Obviously, there could be some differences in that story, but I think that's pretty accurate from the standpoint of what is out there. So I think seeing all that, and the other thing too, let's say that there was plenty of stations or a good number of stations, charging stations. Who's going to wait 10, 15, 20, well, I don't know how long it takes to charge up a car? We don't necessarily have the patience, I don't think, as a consumer body to do that. So you get this pressure from the government to produce electric cars. And of course, I'm sure they put lots of benefits out there that the car manufacturers get for doing so, obviously. And then you get this strike of workers. Now, what they're doing is, I think 10% are on strike up front, and they can plan to add to it, just, I guess, tightening the screws, if you will, until they get 146,000 union members, I believe that there are, and they're all on strike. So the question is, what do I think of it? It's like any other strike. This one has a little bit more of a downside to it because we're already in an inflationary environment, and they probably they probably wait. I would speculate that they waited until the right time to do such a thing. And boy, they picked the right time. And the longer this goes on, and keep in mind, we've seen politicians, Republicans and Democrats, fight over ridiculous demands and budget bills and all kinds of things, and they look like they could never come together. Then at the very last minute, they come together and they're holding hands, singing Kumbaya, and everything is wonderful, just as we never had a problem at all. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen that happen. This seems a little bit more serious, but once again, it could be resolved and get taken care of just like that. But right now, what we're watching is what percentage of union workers are striking. And if that gets to a full strike, that could signal some really serious things going on and potential outcomes. And that's when I think you'll start to really see the effect on the economy. I think it's going to take, obviously, it's going to take a lot more of a percentage of the union to be striking to really make a big point if they chose to do so. So it's kind of a wait and see type thing, and there's some things that are unusual about this strike that you haven't had in past strikes. So, obviously the automakers are making lots of money, maybe not as much as the striking workers say, but we'll see. That's the way those things go. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you have a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.